We are here. The San Francisco 49ers are 2-2. The Faithful Review is here to talk about it. Turn the tide or slide. We are here. I got my man Tom. Jensen with me. It's the Faithful Review. What's good, Tom? How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Coach. I love that intro.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Hey, look. So look,
video, man.
We done cleaned up the place a little bit. We done spruced up a little bit, okay? And it's time for a little bit of a revamped Faithful Review. We got some talking points today. We got some stuff that we're going to bring up. We are going to talk about a lot of different things today. But before we get into today's topics, my man, before we do, how are you doing, Tom? Tom, you there? No, we lost Tom right at the wrong time, bro. So look, right, what we're going to do is we're going to get into our topics for today. Today's major topics right now are we're going to talk about the fatigue of the team. We're starting to see some things set in with the team. We're also going to sit back and talk about trusting the youth. And understanding what we have to do to get that going with some of the veterans that we've seen. How do we move on from certain guys? We're also going to sit back and talk about containing Kyler Murray without Fred Warner, with the possibility with Fred Warner being out today. And we're going to also talk about the James Conner effect. I know what James Conner did the last time he's seen the Niners. And it wasn't much as far as the numbers are concerned. But James Conner did exactly what he'd had to do that day against the Niners. And that was a game where Fred Warner struggled a little bit. And it seems as though that this is a tough runner. This is a guy that loves to be in the mix. And we got to be able to see how we're going to be able to get that going, right? So we got my man in here with the plan, all right? And we got Tom back. Got Tom back in here. And while we get into it, I wanted to talk about a couple of things right now, Tom. The film that we saw revealed that offensive fatigue is setting in. Just in the first half of the drives versus the New England Patriots, you saw a lot of hands on hips, walking during plays, stock blocking, just effort in the red zone. I mean, one of the things that we've noticed about the San Francisco 49ers is that when we start getting into the red zone, that's when space gets tight, right? Resolve has to start setting in. And one of the things that I wanted to get into is is this a one-off, right? Is this a one-off or is this a long-term issue, right? Some of the things that we've starting to see are just, bad blunders on the field, right? Lack of effort on the field. I mean, for context, let's just go ahead and switch over real quick if we could, okay? What I want to do is get into a play that you and I saw and talked about quite often with Deebo Samuel going in against Fred Warner. I mean, going up against outside blockers, walking during plays. I mean, the lack of effort at times where you're looking at him being able to chip a defender, right? Get to the outside block, right? And actually show improve, right? Right? What are we doing here? Walking, right? And as we see right here, the defender, he's the forced defender, and he's calm. He's calm. This is just a lack of effort. And these are some of the things that we've seen that we just got to clean up. So How do you feel about some of that stuff, Tom?
I don't like it from Debo. You have to realize that it's an 11-man game.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has to contribute. Just because you don't have the ball doesn't mean you can stop and walk. And
Mm-hmm.
Debo does that a lot. You
Right.
you look at the effort that Debo had on the play where Purdy got hurt against Philly in the NFC Championship,
Mm-hmm.
where just Debo just stopped.
Right.
And there are plays in New England that you showed in your film review where Debo is walking and the play is still live.
Right.
And that's not excusable.
Mm-hmm.
Can't have that.
Right. So Trent Williams has turf toe, right? He's been reported to have turf toe. George Kittle didn't practice today. Right now, we're seeing nicks and bruises on Fred Warner. There's a possibility that Fred Warner may not play. We'll touch on that later on in the show. Um, right now, are we weathering the storm, or are we seeing the best that the Niners have to give us moving forward?
Probably a mix of the two. That there's a lot of football shape issues with Trent and Ayuk where they're just not in football shape yet. And
Mm-hmm.
we look at the example of Bosa where he held out and it took him until the second half of the year for him to get into football shape. And
Mm-hmm.
that might be the barometer. And that could
Right.
be it for both Trent and Ayuk. So we're going to see this issue up through the bye. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not until we're into mid-November that I think that this will be resolved.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of good games coming up, right? We got to be able to see exactly how we can protect Brock and be able to protect this defense. And it's the running game. But in order for us to be able to utilize the running game in the right way, we've got to be able to not only be multifaceted, it can't just be vanilla, right? We got to show some ingenuity. But one thing I'm also looking at is uh, we've got to be healthy, right?
Yeah.
And where do you think along the season that we should start seeing the old Niners?
I would say mid-November. So by week 10, that's the game at Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we'll start to see all of the issues related to being in football shape are finally addressed by then.
Okay.
And it's a critically important game. Tampa's playing well, and you're going across the country to play them. That's a tough
Mm-hmm.
game, and it's an NFC game against a team that's likely a playoff club.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a good test for them. But that's the game that I'm marking as that's when we should start to see the Niners of old.
Right. Now, if we're looking at the Niners of old, does who do you think is going to make the trip along the way? Right? Is Christian McCaffrey going to be back? Right? We're
I don't
getting.
think so. I think the early November sounds
Mm-hmm.
optimistic to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Christian went to Germany because nothing was happening. He wasn't making any progress. And
Mm-hmm.
so he needed the Regenikine treatment with the stem cell injection to get him off of nothing happening. He
Right.
needed to promote his body to start doing the work so that he could get better.
Right.
Basically that approach, that procedure that worked for Kobe back in the day when he had the arthritic knee,
Mm-hmm.
it rushes blood to the injured area to promote healing. And hopefully that works for Christian. That's what he needs, is that he needs the body to kick in to help him heal.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that he's more likely to be somebody that starts playing in December rather than early November. Because you
All
want to
right.
make sure that when he takes the field, that he's not at extreme risk of rupturing an Achilles.
Well, speaking of players that we're hoping to come back, I feel like this guy has kind of been swept under the rug in a sense, But what's the timetable, the realistic timetable on Dre Greenlaw? I mean, we're going to talk about linebacker for sure. We're going to talk about older players, and we're going to get there. But do you think that that's a viable option? Do you think that we honestly can count on getting back a Dre Greenlaw sometime during the season?
I think sometime during the season, yes, but the Niners are basically hinting at midseason,
Mm-hmm.
and that might not work. This kind of an injury, it takes a long time, and it lingers so that you don't know if you're fully healed or not. And
Mm-hmm.
it can be an injury where you come back and then you feel something pull and you take yourself out of the game because it's too risky.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to take Greenlaw across the country to Tampa Bay. I don't want him to be in a plane that long all the way across to Florida.
Mhm.
So if I bring Dre Greenlaw back, it's for a home game. I don't want him flying across country with that injury. So we'll see. But I think he's another one where you could be looking at late November, early December before Greenlaw plays.
Yeah. So we got to hold serve. I mean, and honestly, if you look at even depending on those guys, then we're going to have to get creative with the roster.
Yeah.
One thing that we've touched on is understanding that coasting through games, having those gentlemen's blowouts, I think those days are over. It looks like we're in tow for some strong games where we're going to have to discover ourselves. I mean, and I think if we're paying attention, that's what's happening throughout 4 games in the season. We've discovered guys along the way, right? Now,
Yeah.
we understand that Jawan has always been third in Jawan. We get that. And a lot of what he's done for us has been, fitting within the cracks, right? Being able to be that guy, that, that unsung hero, if you will. But he's pushing to the forefront. And I feel like there's a lot of guys, Jordan Mason, right? Dominic
Yeah.
Pooney, right? They're pushing. I'm starting to see more shades of Malik Mustafa on the field, which I
More reps.
love the fact that he's getting
Yeah.
more reps. Renardo
Yeah.
Green, right? And I'll say this as we transition into our next topic. I don't want us to get into this traditionalist, like old money, the starters play, the veterans play. We're going to beat our heads against the wall with our old process. Now is the time to move fast, carry light, right, and leave behind hot brass. Like we're operators, baby. We got to be able to be gorillas right now. No way we can't carry a big footprint anymore. We're gonna have to be the Minutemen, right?
Right. Right.
We can't be the British, not
No,
anymore.
no, we can't stand there with red coats in the forest. We can't do that. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's just you look at this team and you say they're facing all these injuries. How do you
Hmm.
compensate for that?
Right.
And you have to compensate for it by having the best 11 on the field. And that means you have to replace Devondre Campbell. You have to replace Isaac Yadam. I'm not sure that Campbell can be replaced this week,
Hmm.
especially since Fred is iffy and D. Winters is iffy. You don't know if those guys are going to play.
Hmm.
But there needs to be a transition plan where you say that Devondre Campbell hasn't worked out. We've got to get to a new solution there. Isaac
Right.
Yadam, I think they're already making the transition in the secondary. They were already saying that Bernardo Green is starting to prove himself. We need to give him more reps. So I think that we're starting to see that balance lean in Green's direction, where you can play Yadam less and Green more, and just keep doing that. But I think that's a transition they need to make everywhere. Is
Well.
where can we go to get to these young guys? Linebacker,
Mm,
that's harder to do, but they need to do it.
well, going into our next topic, from your lips to God's ears, let's get to it. So, with our next topic, as the season progresses, it's clear that some veterans haven't lived up to expectations. Okay. We're going
Yeah.
to start pointing them out. Should the 49ers start relying more on younger players? And you know what? This was your topic, Tom. We both agree. Go ahead and take the table. Go ahead.
Well, we've seen from Devondre Campbell that he is not capable of making the plays physically. Their concern is that D. Winters can't make the plays mentally, that his diagnosis is not up to what they want to see from the linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
But I would look at it this way and say part of the problem with Campbell is he's not there to make the play. Winters might have a misdiagnosis, but he's got the sideline to sideline speed to be at the ball and to help make a team wide game tackle. You've got to have a lot of gang tackling on this team, especially given how weak they are on the run. I think that you're better served by going to Winters if he's healthy and to say, look, we gave Campbell a chance, but he isn't getting it done. We have to move on. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of what Kyle needs to do. And he's done that in the past where he'll transition after you see enough of a sample of games where you say, this guy isn't getting it done. We need to find somebody else. They've got to do
Yeah.
that with Campbell. They've got to do that with Yadam. Both of them.
Yeah. So my thing is this is the question that I have, Tom, and maybe you can answer it for me. But at what point did we stop developing guys? We used to be the team that got the avant-garde guys, the fringe guy that was specific to what we do. All right. Cultivate them, nurture them, put them on the practice squad, keep them fat and happy, give them a little bit more than the average practice squad player gets, right? Put them in reps, and then you don't pace them out, you throw them out, right? And if they sink, they sink. If they swim, they swim. All right. We've done our level best to make sure that you're an asset. And if you can't perform with what we have as a football team right now, then you can't be here. I don't understand when we got into the point where, you know what? I'm answering my own question right now. You know what happened?
But
I'm gonna
that's
tell you.
cool, though. Yeah, go
I'm gonna
ahead.
tell you what happened. Trey Lance. Those 3 first-round picks started changing how they evaluated the guys that they brought in here.
Well,
Drake Jackson doesn't survive on this team if we are able to have a first-round pick the year that we get him. I think that a lot of these guys that they picked up, they had to their evaluation rubric is skewed because of the fact that you're tilted. You need the guy more than the guy is supposed to be able to live up to the standard of what you have in the building. Go ahead, Tom. I can tell you that you want to go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, well, sure. Well, they needed a first-round pick, but they only had a third. And that's what happened with Drake Jackson. And that's the issue, is that if you're too willing to give up these picks, you don't have them anymore. And we have to remember they give up 4 picks for Trey Lance. They give up 4 picks for McCaffrey. It's a lot to give up.
Yeah.
I realize the McCaffrey trade worked out, but it's still, they're too willing to give the picks. And you don't have the talent in talent evaluation in the draft. Get these guys, even when you do get the early picks, you still fail. So they have to get a new mindset. The thing is, you look at this team, where they're great at is late rounds, undrafted free agents. And now they're turning to those exact players. Who's leading the offense? Purdy, Jordan
Mason.
All at the end of the draft or UDFA. And now who are they adding later? Jalen Graham, another late pick. Sam Aquanu, UDFA. Evan Anderson, UDFA.
Stepping up.
That's where they're great at talent evaluation. That's where they need to now say, those guys need to be on the 53. Because I remember when they announced the 53, and I was saying, why is Ronnie Bell on this team? And we're asking that question louder today. And then why did they cut Jalen Graham? What about Sam Aquanu? What about Evan Anderson? And now those guys are out there. So now they're finally reacting. My question is, why weren't they on the 53 to begin with? They had earned it. They were the best talent. And that's part of the issue here, is that you can't say, I'm going to automatically value the veteran first. I'm automatically going to value the guy with system experience first. And that's how you end up putting Ronnie Bell on the field, costing you a game. And that's how you end up with Devondre Campbell and Isaac Yadam. You've got to change your process. And at least I'll give them the credit that they're now recognizing who the real talent is, putting them on the field. They need to do more of that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of what they're doing right now is it's just trial by fire. They really don't, quite frankly, they don't have the luxury.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah. I don't want to give them that much credit. We got to keep the main thing. Right now, they're reeling, right? And you got to play a Jacob Cowing, right? You got to see what you're going to get out of Isaac Guerendo. You have to, right? There's no way that the season has any type of viability if we lose Jordan Mason, right? We're officially back in basically the Elijah Mitchell sweepstakes, in a sense, where there's a guy that we necessarily didn't have that many plans for. And I'm going to tell you, I have a sneaking suspicion that they were going to trade Jordan Mason, but Jordan Mason came back so improved that it completely quelled anything that they wanted to do. Because why the hell is Patrick Taylor Jr. here? What does he do? What is he here for?
Security blanket veteran. That's
I
it.
believe that
That's all he is.
in my mind, I think Patrick Taylor Jr., which is a serviceable back. Okay, he's serviceable. He's not bad.
He's a
He's far from
journeyman.
bad. Yeah, but he's not bad. He's a pro. He is an NFL running back. I will say
Yeah.
that, right? But in a way, if you've seen how the Niners have treated certain players, right? Not necessarily understanding the worth of Juwan, right? The fights that they have with all of the contract negotiations that they have with their players. If you look at it, wouldn't you see that Patrick Taylor Jr. is what the Niners thought Jordan Mason was? Like, let's get this guy in here. He fits a purpose. He's a strong runner, right? Has more experience than Jordan Mason. We'll get a guy in here who actually knows how to block, right? We're tired of this. And then what we'll do is we'll piece off Jordan Mason for a 4th or a 5th round pick during the offseason. Somebody's going to need a strong back. And I think that Jordan Mason came in the offseason and completely blew that shit out of the water. I really do.
He answered every question about him in terms of his knowledge of the offense, his pass protection skills, and his ability to catch the ball.
Right.
All of those changed. And those were the issues that Bobby Turner had with him. And it's why Turner advocated to Shanahan, this kid's not ready yet. So that played into part of this was Bobby Turner. But
right.
Part of it also is that the Niners just aren't that great at talent evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's be honest. You shelved Juwan Jackson, Brock Purdy, and Jordan Mason until so many players were hurt, you were forced to play them. And now, where are you without those guys? You're dead in the water. So they are exceptionally lucky that they found this much talent in the 6th, 7th, and UDFA rounds.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's where they excel because Kyle isn't making those picks.
Right. And also Kyle has nothing to do with that development either. Right.
That too. It's all position coaches.
Yeah. So when they actually get on the field, they're teamed with all of those years of being worked on, all of the drills that they've had. They just need a shot. And I believe that the time that we're in right now with our team, a lot of younger guys are going to get opportunities that we usually haven't seen before. Guys are going to get a lot of opportunities. They can't just give up on guys and I hate to say this, like, I'm a stickler for good, clean football. We all are, right? That's what we want. But at the same time, you got to break some eggs to make an omelet, man. Like, if you're going to see what the kid is worth and you're in a position where you can't have the luxury of just, shelving him, you know what I'm saying? Like, at what point are you going to have to say, look, man, we got to coach? Like, God forbid if we have to coach. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like they come at these guys like it's a temp agency. Like, what can you do? Do you have the skills or not? You don't know Word? You don't know Excel? Well, I don't have time to teach you that. Who doesn't know Word or Excel? Like, what are you talking about, bro? You have to coach him. You have to develop him. So I think that this is putting us in, like, this is a good problem to have, right?
Well, fortunately, they've got the talent to plug in.
Right.
And they put those guys in and say, okay, sink or swim.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these guys are swimming. And because they're swimming, the team is benefiting from it. They don't have the depth because they gave up all those picks to redshirt guys. They can't afford to do that anymore. They have to play these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, they're available, and they identified these guys in talent eval. They're ready to play.
Hey, man, it's something that you're going to have to be able to pay attention to as the season progresses. And I'm excited. I'm excited because we do have, I feel like the bones of our team are good. And I feel like, the depth that we've had, the best that it's been is not when we've gone out and got free agents to come in here and fill the gaps and all of the retreads that Coach Kaczmarek has gotten off the ground. The best of our depth has been guys that we found in the later rounds that have shown that they can fit a role, and we have the equity where they eventually become starters. That's real depth, right? And I see that in the young guys, not in Devondre Campbell and Isaac Yiadom. These guys are patches. Right. They're a means to an end. And we got to be able, and we got to be careful. We have to stay out of that soup, right?
We have to move on from being stuck in that position, having that player on the field.
Right.
Once
So
that guy proves that he's not capable as a starter, he has to be replaced. And they
definitely.
can't go to back where they did before of just, we're going to redshirt a rookie no matter what automatically. Those days are over. They don't have enough picks to do that. They don't have the roster depth or talent to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
because they're so good at identifying UDFAs, they've got the talent to bring in and say, okay, can you get this done? And they do.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So with our next topic, want to get into containing Kyler Murray with the possibility of not having Fred Warner. So that's what I wanted to get to. All right. So look, Tom, you told me to fix it. I didn't. All right. All right. But
Okay, gotcha.
but with Fred Warner possibly out, how should the defense adjust to contain Kyler Murray's mobility and playmaking abilities? Right. I feel like the Niners have seen a different smorgasbord, if you will, right, of quarterbacks, right? Week one, they saw Aaron Rodgers, savvy vet, pitch and catch, a guy who knows how to play hurry up, play within the lines, right? Understand the tempo of the game, right? Keep the same defense on the field, making sure that they can play with us with personnel groupings, all right? Understanding how to single out one guy and beat up on one guy, right? So that's what we saw week one. Okay. Week two, we go and see Sam Darnold. All right. Athletic. All right. Not necessarily most accurate guy, but a plus arm. All right. Somebody who, what he will give you is deep ball accuracy. He'll take the top off if you're not paying attention. And we saw that. Okay. That was something that we saw. And we failed that test. All right. In week two. Then week three. Okay. We got Matt Stafford. I feel like he gave us a little bit of everything that we saw with all the last quarterbacks. The savviness of an Aaron Rodgers, being able to play pitch and catch, get the ball out there. We saw that, and it was emblematic of that is he still had a good day pitching the ball around without Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of it, the plus arm that Sam Darnold gave us, the ability to stretch the defense and strike. We saw that in the later drives against the Rams. That's what actually lost the game for us, right? The 50-yard strike to Tutu Atwell it was.
Yes.
That all but closed the game for us, okay? We got a little bit of a break with Jacoby Brissett, all right? But we see another quarterback who gives us another wrinkle. All right. Now we got an athlete, a real athlete. Okay. Speed, quickness, somebody that will break the pocket, somebody that loves the fact that you can't contain the pocket to keep the edge. If you don't push the pocket from the interior, hold on. The possibility, Big Des, the possibility. We don't know if he's not playing. All right.
Well,
All right.
as people are saying, Fred was quoted today that his plan is to play. That
Right.
doesn't mean he will. It's just that's what he hopes to do.
Exactly.
He had light running on the side. He didn't practice today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible that Fred plays. It's possible that he doesn't. We don't know definitively one way or the other yet, but Fred hopes that he'll play.
Right.
But regardless, he's not going to play at 100%. We know that much.
Right.
If he does play.
So I digress. So what are we going to do to contain Kyler Murray? This is somebody who can take over a game, right? Essentially play keep away, right?
Yeah.
Also somebody with big strike ability. And oh, by the way, he's got Marvin Harrison Jr. He's got a great athlete to throw the ball to who loves some of his best routes are 20 plus yards down the field. All right. So what are some of the things that the Niners can do to contain Kyler Murray with the possibility of not having, let's just say it, the best linebacker in football on the field?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is you have to contain Kyler.
Mm-hmm.
So that means, Nick Bosa, you don't make the stunt move inside. You maintain your lane. You maintain your edge. You keep him moving wide, and you prevent him from turning the corner.
Mm-hmm.
the edges have to commit to setting the edge on Kyler. That's number
Mm-hmm.
one. Number two, I think, is you can't play this as if we're just playing any quarterback. You have to play him anticipating that he's going to look to run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, your front four is basically all about containing the run from Kyler or James Conner. You're playing the run the entire game. You're not playing to sack Kyler Murray. You're playing to contain him. You're playing to get guys on the ball for gang tackling of either one of those guys. And
Right.
so, from the defensive line point of view, I think that you're looking to move laterally rather than vertically. That you might take your lineman on, but your responsibility is horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
You have to maintain the edges. On top of that, the linebackers, I would hope, or a safety, spy Kyler. You need
Mm-hmm.
somebody with similar speed, so I think you might have to go with the safety there. And
Mm-hmm.
then you also have to find a way to double Marvin Harrison Jr. Kyler has a 107 passer rating to MHJ. He has a much lower rating to everybody else that he would throw to.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take Harrison away. You have to take the outside run game away and then defend Arizona that way. I think that's their best chance.
Does Mooney Ward travel with Marvin Harrison Jr.? Or should he?
Well, you can start the game with him traveling and see how he does, but Mooney has been beaten sometimes, and so
Mm-hmm.
we'll have to see if he's capable of that, or if the Niners are better off having Lenore travel with him. I don't know. It's just, do you need to match the speed, or do you need somebody with size? What do you need? I would read what's happening early and then adjust and say, what's our best hope of containing this guy? But regardless, I think that you need to bring double attention on Harrison to try to take him away as a target to force Kyler to throw to the other guys.
The X factor of this game, since we're talking about the offense, in my eyes, the X factor of this game is Trey McBride, their tight end.
Yeah.
I
And that's
I
where Fred comes in. If Fred is playing, then he can take McBride away. If Fred isn't, and you've got Devondre Campbell on the field, Trey McBride can fry him.
But that's my next question. Is this when they show trust in D Winners? I mean, Trey McBride is a plus athlete. He's 6'3", 246. All right. Second round guy, came alive last year, had his coming out party.
Yeah.
Damn near broke most of significant records for rookie tight ends or first time tight ends for the Cardinals, as well as a nice touchdown streak that he had last year. And this is somebody where you really don't worry about him when you have Fred on the field. And also, right now, Devondre Campbell is just showing that, I beat up on Devondre Campbell enough, but it's just showing that he struggles in pass protection and pass defense,
It's
right?
just it's time has caught up to him. He was a great player for a long time in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He no longer is, and you have to adjust to that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, Devondre, unfortunately, is a backup linebacker at this point. So if Winters is good to go, yeah, because you're going to need somebody with the speed to hang with McBride. Hopefully, Fred can play, and Fred can take out Trey McBride as a factor in this game.
Well, one thing
Because
that I
Fred,
wanted,
even on a bad ankle, I think that Fred could still hang with him just on his competitive desire alone. Hopefully, Fred can play. But they're going to
well,
need him because if it's somebody other than Fred on McBride, that's a problem.
one thing that I did want to bring up is that Trey McBride is also suffering from a concussion too, so he's in
Oh,
the protocol. All
okay.
right. So one thing that we have to look at is that if it's not going to be Trey McBride, they're going to have Elijah Higgins as the tight end that's going to follow up with Elijah. I mean, that's going to follow up for Trey. So we might get a reprieve, right?
Okay.
So right there, that's one thing that we have to look at right there is that if Trey McBride doesn't play, Elijah Higgins is what is the tight end that they're going to have that's going to come in after him. But really, I just think that it's really not even who's on the field if Kyler Murray is having a day, right? And really, we're kind of letting somebody off the hook that I feel like we should be talking about week to week. That I feel like after 4 games, it's he's deserved this. We need to start talking about Brandon Staley and Nick Sorensen every week. every week we
True.
need to start
True.
talking about what are they going to do this week, because I can tell you there has not been one game this season where I have not looked at the defense and asked myself what is going on with the preparation and the coaching and the decision making during games. So really, Kyler Murray against our players is one story. But Nick Sorensen putting them in the best position as possible, along with Brandon Staley, and how they coach during the game is going to be what's most important. So I'm anxious to see that as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point, Coach. Because you have to wonder, they showed a lot of blitzing against New England, but that's a team where it's the worst offensive line in the league,
Right.
and it's Jacoby Brissett. Now
Mm-hmm.
you go up against Arizona, you're going up against a better line, and you're going up a quarterback that can run like the wind and
Right.
throw it downfield 60 yards on a dot.
Right.
So, how do you deal with that? To me, the answer is you have to commit horizontally to contain Kyler.
Right.
But will they do that? We don't know.
Right.
Strategically, they've made the correct call in one game of the four. That's it. You know,
Yeah.
they've been the most reluctant blitzing team in the league up until the New England game.
Yeah.
They were last in the league in blitz attempts, 14% a game.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Well,
they finally took it up over 30 last game, and they had a lot of success. But how much of that was blitzing? How much of that was the New England line? You got to find out. But what I want to see from the Niner coaches is I want to see the willingness to be aggressive and experiment and see what you can get done. But
definitely.
I also want to see you commit to what you have to stop, which is Connor and dealing with everything that they can do in the run game. That Kyler going wide, Connor going inside, and Connor going wide off tackle. How do you deal
Mm-hmm.
with all of that? There has to be a game plan to that, and they haven't faced an offense like this yet. To your
Mm-hmm.
point from earlier, you got a different quarterback. You've got a much better line than last week. How are you going to adjust to that?
Mm-hmm. All right. So, look, moving into the next topic. All right. So, what we want to get into is, well, Hannibal has something to say. But James Conner and the 49ers defensive test. All right. So, James Conner is pretty much he's a good runner, man. I'm gonna tell you. I'm impressed with James Conner. James Conner is always giving the Niners problems, and not even from a numbers perspective, but he just does. His entire game is the antithesis of our defense. He's big, fast, strong runner. He gets stronger as the game goes on. More carries is what he
Yeah,
likes. He
he's a bell
really
cow.
he's a bell cow back. He thrives on running in between the tackles at 6'1", 233 pounds. I mean, this is a guy who I've seen Fred Warner struggle with, right? He's a load to bring down. And that's no knock on
Right.
Fred, right?
No,
But
that's just who Connor is.
it is who he is, right? With the 4 games that we've had this season, he's ran for 100 yards in week 1. He ran for 122 against the Rams. He had 16 tugs for 50 yards last week against Buffalo, and against Washington. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, against Washington, and against Washington, he had 104 with a touchdown, and his 104 yards, and his long was a 20-yard run. He's turning on. As a matter of fact, I was reading his numbers in the inverse. Right now, I will say this. I'm gonna answer a little bit of this question before I turn it over to you. All right, Devondre Campbell, for what he lacks in pass defense, Devondre Campbell is okay in the run game. Okay. He's savvy in the run game. All right. When it comes down to effort, filling the gap, good tackling, Devondre Campbell, if he runs into a defender, he will be a pro player. Okay. My biggest thing is what I've been seeing out of the defensive line. They've been getting washed out of gaps and moved with Malik Collins. Jordan Elliott seems to be nursing some type of lower extremity injury. And James Conner is the type of guy that can really be a problem with a quarterback like Kyler Murray, because what it does is it allows Kyler to really air the ball out, because Kyler has a very beautiful deep ball. He loves to get the ball out. And if the Niners can't stop the run game, all right, we're going to have to start creeping up into that box, and it's going to make things a lot more difficult for us. How do you think we fare against James Conner without Fred? The possibility of having James Conner without Fred.
If they don't have Fred, I think that's part of why they need to commit to a run defense from your front four and just say that our goal in this game is not to sack Kyler, it's to contain runs from Kyler and from Conner. But Conner is one of the most underrated backs in the league, really. Year in,
Yes.
year out, he gets a lot done, and he's unique in that he's powerful, but he's still got speed. So in some ways, he's kind of a Jordan Mason in and of himself, of kind of the running style, and he's a powerful, violent runner, somebody that can also take advantage of speed and opportunity. So the Niners are going to have to be smart up front, and they're going to need to get help from the linebackers. And the problem is, where's that going to come from? If it's Demetrius Flanagan fouls, good luck. I'm hopeful that D. Winters is well enough to play. I want to see his sideline to sideline speed. I think that's something they really need against Arizona.
Yeah. Do we start blitzing during this game? What do you fair to see different?
Well, I want to see some blitzing just to see if you can force Kyler out. And then if you're smart in setting the edges, then you can force him to one side of the field. You can shade your coverage accordingly, and you can shut down Marvin Harrison as a result of that. It's kind of applying the Jordan rules to football, where you cut off half the playing surface.
Right.
Can they do that? We'll see. But I think that that's something that, again, there needs to be a willingness to experiment. But I think from a baseline defense point of view, everything is about containing the run game in this. It's not about the pass game. And if Kyler is going to hook up with Harrison, okay, but I just put two people on Harrison automatically and say, make the other guys beat us. That would be my game plan. It's just, I'm going to shut down your run. I'm going to commit to that. And I'm going to take away Harrison, and then let's see what else you can get done.
Yeah. Do we see there's some guys that I'm just, all right. So the last topic was trusting the youth, losing veterans. Okay. But there are some guys that we are waiting to turn the tide. Right. And I wanted to embed this into the topic. Do we see Talanoa Hufanga turn the tide? Right. Is he going to start coming on, or, you know what I mean? Cause that's a scary question to ask.
Is he going to play? I'm worried about Hufanga in terms of just re-injury of past injuries.
Right.
And is this something that he can't fully recover from? Does he need more time?
Right.
And I think that's why they drafted Malik Mustafa anyway, is that they're going to let Hufanga go. So
do you think so?
Yeah, because he's a free agent at the end of the year, and they can't afford to keep him given all the other free agents they need to keep. I mean, you've got Diamador Lenore, Mooney Ward, Dre Greenlaw. You got to keep those guys if you possibly can, especially Lenore and Greenlaw. So it could be that Hufanga is just kind of lost in the wash in terms of just there's too many free agents they need to sign. They can't afford to keep them. I think they're going to let Hufanga go. I think they're going to let Aaron Banks go. And that is why they drafted Mustafa and Pooney, is they wanted replacements to fill in for those guys after this year. I think that was the big term plan. But in terms of what they do going forward, I just think that, again, you have to trust in having a game plan that takes away what they do best and living with the rest. And Arizona only does a couple of things well, try to take them away. The other factor with Conner is that because Arizona's defense is so weak, the other way you take Conner out of the game is you just say, we've got a lead. You can't run Conner anymore in the second half. You're down 20.
I think that's
ultimately that's how they're going to stop Conner.
Yeah, I don't think that. It's a shame to say this, but I don't think that we have enough bodies right now to stop like a hot James Conner. I think the way you get the way you fight against James Conner is to keep as many reps away from him as possible. I do believe that this is going to be offense versus offense. This defense that we're facing is not. I feel like they're a tick above New England, right? But they're not world beaters. Arizona on defense.
No,
Yeah. So
they've got Buda Baker and 10 imposters, 10
yeah,
guys where it's just can
they
they
got
play? They've got
Jags.
guys,
Yeah,
guys.
they got guys on defense, definitely. I mean, if you look at right now, Buda Baker, outside of Buda Baker, you know, Garadek at edge, Zaven Collins. I mean, I'm tired of waiting on Zaven Collins, man. He was a guy who I used to wait on. Can't really do it. I mean, as far as corners are concerned, Murphy Bunting and Starling Thomas the fifth, like I'm not really scared about that. Really, what we need to do is start utilizing. I mean, I don't know if George is going to be able to play today. I mean, play this week, but Kazir White and you know, Mac Wilson Sr., these are guys that are primed for being able to get utilized, man. They're vulnerable. I think that this defense can get scored upon. There's
Yeah,
nothing
well,
about this defense that really impresses me. Even the safety that they have, Jalen Thompson, I'm not seeing it.
no, he's been okay, but not great. And you look at it, and Washington put 42 on him last week,
Yeah.
and then you look at this Arizona team, and you say, okay, Buda Baker, great player, all pro, or at least a Pro Bowl level safety at this point in his career, and the rest of the guys are just there. Yeah, and so you can win this game, and I think ultimately that's how they're going to stop James Conner is just going up 21 because Arizona can't stop the Niner offense.
Well, one thing I will say is the first thing we're going to have to do is prove it because Paris Johnson Jr., okay, Will Hernandez, Frode Holt, Beecham, and Brown, we're dealing with yet another team that has invested in their offensive line. This is not
Yeah,
a bad O-line. All right.
it's a
This
good one.
is
It's a good one.
yes, this is a good O-line that we're going to see. Primarily both of those tackles, they got tackled, they handled tackle. So, while we're talking about James Conner, we might as well talk about the guys that are going to be blocking for him. Right now, would you say this is the best O-line that the Niners are going to see? I
I
think
don't know
this
about
O-line is better than the Rams.
no. They play Detroit. I
Well,
think
no.
Detroit
So
has the best
far,
O line.
so far, Tom.
Okay. So far, yeah.
So far, I believe this is the best O-line we're going to see that we've seen thus far.
Yeah. So far in the season, yes.
Mm-hmm. So, we need Fred to play. Even I don't even care what type of Fred that we get. Right, Fred at 50% is better than what we need to throw on the field right now.
And
Do you
anybody else who would go out there.
see any early? Do you see any like surprise starts or surprise, like not even the Niners don't do good at starting, but what they will do is throw guys in on packages, right? Do we see Jalen Graham get activated? He's on the 53 now.
I think we will, but he's basically brought in for at least this week for special teams because Curtis Robinson went out for the year. So I think that's what they're looking at with Jalen Graham, at least in week one. But hopefully they add Graham next week, and they're going to need him. But I'd be surprised if I see Graham on the field other than special teams.
What do you think about D Winners starting to get more reps?
I hope so. I dearly hope so. They need him. And especially in this game, as I said before, you need Winner's speed against the Arizona offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll tell you this. Like we said before, the whole theme of this entire show is um, no spare parts, man. Everybody's got to play. Everybody's got to contribute. At this stage, I think that facing a team that has a strong run game, the tip of the spear for the Arizona Cardinals is their offense. But if Kyler, it's always about keep it simple, stupid. If Kyler can just break the pocket and get 5-8 yards a clip just by, a quick run down the field, it's going to be an excruciating game to watch.
And those are backbreakers where he gets outside of containment and picks up a first down, where it's 3rd and 8 and Kyler gets away and he gets the first down scrambling. And
Exactly.
when the Niners give up first down scrambling, maybe it's just me. It seems like they always give up points. If there's a drive where the quarterback gets a run first down, the Niners hang their heads and they get beat and the other team scores. Invariably.
Ridiculous. So, moving into our next topic, Hannibal's going off over there. They better
Hannibal
be okay.
agrees.
Hannibal agrees. Exactly. Moving into our last topic of the show, man. I want you to be able to take this one over because you have looked far more ahead than I have. And there's also a crucial game that you and I spoke about where I feel like you can illuminate exactly the importance of the game that we have coming against the Seattle Seahawks. So at 2-2, the 49ers are outside the playoff picture, right? Right now. How crucial is the Seahawks game, and what are the stakes if they don't pull off a win? Now, you got to give it to us, Tom, because I haven't looked at the chat, but I know that everybody's saying, man, we haven't even played the Cardinals yet. What are you talking about, Tom?
Yeah. That's typical me looking too far ahead.
Right.
But yeah, let's just assume, hopefully, that because the Arizona defense is so weak, the Niners win this game.
Right.
And they need to. Part of the problem is that their losses have come against NFC teams. And you've lost a division game already. Part of, when you get to the tiebreaker on division, it's your record in the division after head to head. So if your head to head is 1-1, then the next tiebreaker is how would you do against the rest of the NFC West? And therefore, the division games are critical. The Niners ideally need to run the table and win their next 7 division games,
Hold
starting
on,
with
Tom.
Arizona.
Tom, hold on. So I'm gonna give you. I know you're not even close to being done with your topic,
No, go ahead.
but I'm gonna give you some pushback. So, not pushback, but let's just build on this a little bit. You're saying that the Niners have to run the table with their next 7 to 8 NFC opponents.
No, they have to run the table with the divisional games.
So right now they
They've
can't
got
lose out
set.
at
They've
all.
got because they're 0-1 in the division right now. If they then lose, then they'll have 2 losses in the division if they lose to Arizona or Seattle. And now it starts to slip away to lose the division tiebreaker in terms of how you do in the division head to head. That's the danger, is that if they were to lose to Arizona and Seattle, the division is basically gone because now you're 0-3 in the division. You lose that tiebreaker unless you win a head to head against a given team. But you will have already lost to all 3 teams in the division if that's the scenario. So they need to be, especially the division games, they need to win, especially given that they lost to the Rams already. Then you factor in that Seattle has a better record. And if the Niners lose to Seattle, now you're 2 games down to them because they will have beaten you head to head. Seattle will have lost 1 game, the Niners will have lost 3. And it becomes harder again on tiebreaker to get back, particularly given that at that point the Niners will have lost 3 NFC games. Now they lose that tiebreaker in the playoffs. You can't afford to have these mistakes early because it's going to cost you with the tiebreakers at the end of the year for the playoff seeds. That's why these games are so important.
Man. So right now, we basically put ourselves in a position where we have to go undefeated for the rest of our divisional games in the season. We cannot lose
Well,
another divisional game.
ideally, yes. But the one thing that they can't afford to have happen is losing to Seattle because they're already a game ahead of us. And so if you lose to Seattle head to head, now you've lost, you're 2 games behind them, plus you've lost the head to head game. And you will have lost at least 2 divisional games on top of that. So that's why the Seattle game is so important. They have to win that. And it won't be easy.
I mean, in my predictions, now that you said it, in my predictions, I had us losing to Seattle the first time we see them.
Me too. And I still do. But it's going to come down to a couple of things. Seattle against Detroit was missing their entire defensive line. All 4
Right.
starters were out with injury.
They lost 49-29.
But all those starters are expected to be back in time for the Niner game on Thursday night. And so if they have that, that's going to be the key. It's just Mike McDonald, when he was defensive coordinator for Baltimore, owned the Niners, 5 picks.
Yeah.
And Kyle doesn't have an answer for simulated pressure. McDonald is the best in the league at simulated pressure, and you've got all the blitzing that they do as well. It's Kyle in the last year is 0 for 5 against the best four defensive coordinators. So that's Flores, Spagnuolo, Jim Schwartz, and McDonald. And now, after the Arizona game, your next two games are against two of those defensive coordinators. You're going up against McDonald and then Spagnuolo. So Kyle has to figure out simulated pressure soon, and he has to find a way to beat them. And we'll have to see what Seattle has in terms of their chess pieces that are available for McDonald to employ that system. If the defensive line is still out, it's a lot easier for the Niners to win that game. If they're back, McDonald has the pieces he needs, and he's proven that he can outthink Kyle in terms of execution and strategy.
Well, he hasn't proven to do anything with McDonald since he's faced him. One thing that I have seen is that if we're looking at the McDonald-led team's defenses, rather, because this is his first time having his own team,
Right.
if you look at the defenses that he's had, one thing that he does do, and it's he's a man after my own heart. He deals with the offensive line. He confuses the offensive line with the simulated pressures. He never gives them a break. He makes sure that all five guys on that line can block individually. He's going to pin and pull. He's going to twist. He's going to TE stunt. He's going to overload. He's going to single. He's going to single Colton McKivitz out with 3x1 leverage. Like, it's going to be a lot. And we haven't seen a defensive line that's, I guess the word that I'm looking for is predatory. We haven't faced a defensive line that plays with mean intentions, where this is the reason why this team is good, right? And I'd like to see, man, if we're going to be up for the test, man.
Kyle hasn't passed that test yet in a year, and so that's a concern. But what's the health status of the Seattle defensive line? And as Marcus points out here, McDonald had different personnel with Baltimore. Yeah, he did. He had elite personnel across the line to do exactly what he wanted to do. He's not going to be able to duplicate that. But you still get to the concept itself. The concept fooled Kyle. You can have lesser personnel, but Kansas City, when Spagnuolo did that, 9 unblocked pass rushers on blitzes in the Super Bowl.
Say it again, Tom.
The Niners missed assignments and 9 unblocked pass rushers. McDonald with Baltimore in the Christmas night game, 5 interceptions. Baltimore had every answer. So conceptually, strategically, McDonald can do a number of different things, even if he doesn't have the same personnel. He can still confuse Kyle. That's the issue. All of these defensive coordinators have confused Kyle. Does McDonald have enough talent now to be able to do that as well? That's what we don't know yet.
Right.
But it's a huge test for Kyle. You have to figure out simulated pressure right now, because your next 2 games after Arizona are McDonald and Spagnuolo.
Well, riddle me this, Batman. What is Brandon Staley doing in the building for? Because that's especially isn't that what he does?
You would think. But you also look at his history and say, what has Brandon Staley done?
Respect. I mean, my biggest thing right now is just seeing what the coaches have done. We're 2-2. I'll give Kyle credit for week 1 against the Jets. He kind of scrapped the game plan and went with the hot hand. That was the Jordan Mason night, right?
Yeah, and that was smart. That's what he had to do.
Yeah. But my biggest thing right now is, in these losses, Kyle has been outcoached. They've all been outcoached in these losses. And it's been everything. Special teams, defense, and badly, right? And offense. So my biggest thing right now is, when are we going to start seeing like coaching wins, right? Because right now, you look at what the Rams did to us. The Rams aren't a better team than us. Pound for pound roster, even now with what we have, the Rams aren't a better team than us, right?
No. They lost to McVay and Stafford.
Thank you, Tom. we got out-coached. We didn't get beat by better players. They singled out Devondre Campbell. Okay? They singled him out. All right? They went after Mooney Ward. They went after the Jair Brown. They went after him, right?
Yeah.
Those are my things, is that it's not so much as that we have the players that are able to do to be able to do what they need to during games. But my issue now is that in these losses, you see real confusion, right? You see guys getting out schemed, right? And
Yeah.
I guess
Particularly
my
with
biggest
Minnesota
question,
and LA.
yeah. If we're being honest, Minnesota kind of turned out to be way better than we were giving them credit for, right?
Yeah, but that was also a coaching masterpiece on both sides from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So, Tom, we got another one in the books, baby. All right.
This was great.
NFC playoff race. Let me know, where do you ultimately think we stand? Where does it, when the dust settles, where we stand?
I think that if Seattle has their 4 defensive linemen, they win that game. That takes the Niners out of probably winning the NFC West, and they become a wild card team. But at the end of the year, hopefully they've got McCaffrey, they've got Dre. They're a team that can get hot late and run the table, but they have to finish that run at Detroit or at Minnesota. And to me, I think that's where it would end.
All right, man. Well, look, man, Tom, it has been another good one. And you know how we do it. What are you doing for the rest of the week?
Writing.
Tom, tell us your column. Plug your column. Let us know.
NinerCast on Twitter. I'll have some thought pieces coming up, and then a game preview, and then the game recap. Usually the night after the game is usually up. So look for those. And I will be starting my channel pretty soon. I'm working on some stuff now. Hopefully within another week. I hope that my first video on my channel will be a game preview of the Seattle game.
Hey, when Tom starts his channel, Tom, if I'm not the first guest, we fighting.
Oh, you're the first guest? Of course you are.
Hey, it's the coach. Stay low and keep your feet moving.